So first of all, part one is called Heir of the Survivor, which is the part one of Will of
Oh, I'm not
Ascension.
reading this. I'm not reading this. Anyway, uh-huh.
So there's an epigraph at the start of chapter one. So we get epigraphs in this book too. This one is I write these words in steel, for anything not set in metal cannot be trusted. Any thoughts on that before I read the chapter?
Keep going.
Okay. The army crept like a dark stain across the horizon. King Ellen Venture stood motionless upon the Luthadel city wall, looking out at the enemy troops. Around him, ash fell from the sky in fat, lazy flakes. It wasn't the burnt white ash that one saw in dead coals, this was a harsher black ash. The ash mounts had been particularly active lately. Ellen felt the ash dust his face and clothing, but he ignored it. In the distance, the blood-red sun was close to setting. It batlicked the army that had come to take Ellen's kingdom from him. How many? Ellen asked quietly. 50,000, we think, Ham said, leaning against the parapet, beefy arms folded on the stone. Like everything in the city, the wall had been stained black by countless years of ash falls. 50,000 soldiers, Ellen said, trailing off. Despite heavy recruitment, Ellen had barely 20,000 men under his command, and they were peasants with less than a year of training. Maintaining even that small number was straining his resources. If they had been able to find the Lord Ruler's ATM, perhaps things would be different. As it was, Ellen's rule was in serious danger of economic disaster. What do you think? Ellen asked. I don't know, Elle, Ham said quietly. Kelsier was always the one with the vision. But you helped him plan, Ellen said. You and the others, you were his crew. You were the ones who came up with a strategy for overthrowing the Empire, then made it happen. Ham fell silent, and Ellen felt as if he knew what the man was thinking. Kelsier was central to it all. He was the one who organized, the one who took all the wild brainstorming and turned it into a viable operation. He was the leader, the genius, and he died a year before, on the very same day that the people, as part of his secret plan, had risen up in fury to overthrow their god emperor. Ellen had taken the throne in the ensuing chaos. Now it was looking more and more like he would lose everything that Kelsier and his crew had worked so hard to accomplish. Lose it to a tyrant who might be even worse than the Lord Ruler. A petty, devious bully in noble form. The man who had marched his army on Luthadel. Ellen's own father, Straff Venture. Any
Mhm.
chance you can talk him out of attacking? Ham asked. Maybe, Ellen said hesitantly. Assuming the Assembly doesn't simply surrender the city. They close? I don't know. Honestly, I worry that they are. That army has frightened them, Ham. And with good reason. Anyway, I have a proposal for the meeting in 2 days. I'll try to talk them out of doing anything rash. Dockson got back today, right? Ham nodded. Just before the army's advance. I think we should call a meeting of the crew, Ellen said. See if we can come up with a way out of this. We'll still be pretty short-handed, Ham said, rubbing his chin. Spook isn't supposed to be back for another week, and the Lord Ruler only knows where Breeze went. We haven't had a message from him in months. Ellen sighed, shaking his head. I can't think of anything else, Ham. He turned, staring out over the ashen landscape. The army was lighting campfires as the sun set. Soon the mist would appear. I need to get back to the palace and work on the proposal, Ellen thought. Where'd Vin run off to? Ham asked, turning to Ellen. Ellen hesitated. You know, he said, I'm not sure. Vin landed softly on the damp cobblestones, watching as the mists began to form around her. They puffed into existence as darkness fell, growing like tangles of translucent vines, twisting and wrapping around one another. The great city of Luthadel was still. Even now, a year after the Lord Ruler's death and the rise of Ellen's new free government, the common people stayed in their homes at night. They feared the mists, a tradition that went far deeper than the Lord Ruler's laws. Vin slipped forward quietly, senses alert. Inside herself, as always, she burned tin and pewter. Tin enhanced her senses, making it easier for her to see in the night. Pewter made her body stronger, made her lighter on her feet. These, along with copper, which had the power to hide her use of allomancy from others who were burning bronze, were metals that she left on almost all the time. Someone called her paranoid. She thought herself prepared. Either way, the habit had saved her life on numerous occasions. She approached a quiet street corner and stopped, peeking out. She never really understood how she burned metals. She remembered doing it for as long as she'd been alive, using allomancy instinctively even before she was formally trained by Kelsier. It didn't really matter to her. She wasn't like Ellen, she didn't need a logical explanation for everything. For Vin, it was enough that when she swallowed bits of metal, she was able to draw upon their power. Power she appreciated, for she knew well what it was like to lack it. Even now, she was not what one would likely envision as a warrior. Slight of frame and barely 5 feet tall, with dark hair and pale skin, she knew she had an almost frail look about her. She no longer displayed the underfed look that she had during her childhood on the streets, but she certainly wasn't someone any man could find intimidating. She liked that. It gave her an edge, and she needed every edge she could get. She also liked the night. During the day, Luthadel was cramped and confining despite its size. But at night the mists fell like a deep cloud. They dampened, softened, shaded. Massive keeps became shadowed mountains, and crowded tenements melted together like a chandler's rejected wares. Vin crouched beside her building, still watching the intersection. Carefully she reached within herself and burned steel, one of the other metals she swallowed earlier. Immediately a group of translucent blue lines sprang up around her. Visible only to her eyes, the lines pointed from her chest to nearby sources of metal. All metals, no matter what type. The thickness of the lines were proportionate to the size of the metal pieces they met. Some pointed to bronze door latches, others to crude iron nails holding boards together. She waited silently. None of the lines moved. Burning steel was an easy way to tell if someone was moving nearby. If they were wearing bits of metal, they would trail telltale moving lines of blue. Of course, that wasn't the main purpose of steel. Vin reached her hand carefully into her belt pouch and pulled out one of the many coins that sat within, muffled by cloth batting. Like all other bits of metal, this coin had a blue line extending from its center to Vin's chest. She flipped the coin into the air, then mentally grabbed its line, and burning steel pushed on the coin. The bit of metal shot into the air, arcing through the mists, forced away by the push. Planked to the ground in the middle of the street. The mists continued to spin. They were thick and mysterious even to Vin. More dense than a simple fog and more constant than any normal weather pattern. They churned and flowed, making rivulets around her. Her tin-enhanced eyes could pierce them, the night seemed lighter to her, the mists less thick, yet they were still there. A shadow moved in the city square, responding to her coin, which she had pushed there as a signal. Vin crept forward and recognized Orisur, the Kandra. He wore a different body than he had a year ago, during the days when he had acted the part of Lord Renault. Yet this balding, nondescript body had now become just as familiar to Vin. Orisur met up with her. "Did you find what you were looking for, mistress?" he asked, tone respectful, yet still a little hostile. As always. Vin shook her head, glancing around the darkness. "Maybe I was wrong," she said. "Maybe I wasn't being followed." The acknowledgement made her a bit sad. She'd been looking forward to sparring with the Watcher again tonight. She still didn't even know who he was. The first night she'd mistaken him for an assassin. Maybe he was. Yet he seemed to display very little interest in Elend and a whole lot of interest in Vin. "We should go back to the wall," Vin decided, standing up. "Elend will be wondering where I went." Orisur nodded, and at that moment a burst of coins shot through the mist, spraying towards Vin. And that is chapter 1.
Now I shall move on to chapter 2 real quick.
No.
I do have it though.
So that's chapter 1. What did you guys think of the first chapter?
It didn't surprise me that the dad was gonna do what he's gonna do, but you know.
Not at all. But also the fact that it seemed to have jumped quite drastically all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's a year ahead.
I feel like okay. Does it continue to be a year ahead, or is it gonna continue after that, or is it gonna go backwards now? And
I believe it continues to be a year ahead.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna do the same month jumps forward.
It's still okay. So
Yeah.
it's still gonna go forward from here. It's not like
Yeah.
It's not like this is the first chapter is like
They'll probably talk about what's happened between the time from the like overtake to like where they are now though.
So what did you think about Orisur now that he is out as a Kandra and not playing Lord Renault?
seems that he is it's got some kind of a issue though.
A little hostile, apparently.
Yeah.
But respectful.
Hostile.
So his voice was a little hostile.
Yeah, towards Vin. Wonder why.
You said hoist. Anyway,
Hoist Vin. Yeah.
Also, who do you think this Watcher is?
it's
Maybe it's another Alamantic power.
Kelsier, obviously.
I feel like it's gonna be another a different Conjure.
Right. Did you have any other thoughts about our little preview there?
Nope, not really.
Alright, so for episode 1, we'll be reading chapters 2 to 6 of The Well of Ascension.
Sounds good.
We get those little epigraphs.
Yeah, we
do
get
are there
epigraphs
in
again.
this?
There are
But
epigraphs.
But the diary's done.
Maybe they're not from the diary.
The diary is done now.
Because, I mean, the first epigraph was that they write these words in steel. The logbook was not in steel.
So the logbook lies.
No, but yeah. Anyway,
I mean, you can only trust what's written in steel, right?
Apparently.
So it lies.
So yeah, so are you guys excited for the next book?
totally.
Yep, I'll be reading it on Friday.